Captain David Richardson stared out of the spaceship window at the strange blue planet getting bigger and bigger. After 6 months of planning, he was finally here. This wasn't just any regular space mission. This was humanity's first real chance to make friends with an alien species that could change everything for Earth. The year was 2387, and Earth needed help. The growing colonies on distant planets were running out of special materials needed to keep expanding. These aliens, called Zephyrians, had exactly what Earth needed, but nobody really knew much about them except that they looked like humans with blue skin and could somehow read thoughts. David had been chosen for this mission because he was known for staying calm under pressure. He'd handled difficult situations before, but nothing like this. Making friends with aliens was completely new territory for everyone. His communication device buzzed. "Captain, we're getting a signal from the planet's surface," his pilot announced. "They want to meet you at their main city." David straightened his uniform and checked his equipment one more time. Earth's leaders had given him strict instructions about what information he could and couldn't share. The safety of billions of people back home depended on making the right choices here. As their ship landed at what looked like a crystal city, David couldn't believe his eyes. Tall, shining towers stretched up toward the sky, glowing with soft colors that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Everything looked alive somehow, even the buildings. A figure approached their landing area. David's first thought was how beautiful she looked. The alien woman had bright blue skin with delicate silver patterns that seemed to shimmer as she moved. Her eyes were larger than human eyes and sparkled with intelligence. "Welcome to our world, Captain Richardson," she said in perfect English, though her voice had a musical quality that was definitely not human. "I am Ambassador Kira, and I will be your guide during your stay here." David stepped out of his ship, trying not to show how amazed he felt. "Thank you for welcoming us. This is an incredible honor for humanity." Kira smiled, but David noticed something careful in her expression. "Our queen is very interested in meeting you. However, I must warn you that our ways might seem strange to you. We do things differently here." As they walked through the Crystal City, David saw other Zephyrians going about their daily lives. Some paused to look at him with curious expressions, while others seemed to already know he was coming. It was unsettling how they all seemed to be silently communicating with each other. "How do you all seem to know what each other is thinking?" David asked. Kira glanced at him. "We share thoughts and feelings naturally. It's how we've lived for thousands of years. We find it strange that humans keep their minds closed to each other." This made David uncomfortable. Earth's security experts had specifically warned him never to let the aliens into his thoughts. They were worried about what might happen if these beings could access human military secrets or weaknesses. The streets were unlike anything David had ever seen. Instead of concrete and metal, everything seemed to be made from some kind of living crystal that responded to the presence of the Zephyrians walking on it. Gentle lights would appear under their feet and fade away after they passed. "Your city is amazing," David said, genuinely impressed. "Thank you. Everything here grows rather than being built. We work with nature instead of fighting against it," Kira explained. "This is something our queen values greatly. She believes that beings who cannot live in harmony with their surroundings cannot be trusted with greater responsibilities." David wondered if that was some kind of test or warning. Everything Kira said seemed to have deeper meaning. They arrived at what was obviously the royal palace. It was the largest crystal structure David had seen, rising high into the clouds, with spiraling towers that seemed to dance in the light. Guards stood at the entrance, but they didn't carry any weapons David could recognize. "The Queen will see you shortly," Kira said as they entered a grand hall. "But first you should understand something important about our culture. We believe that truth can only exist when minds are open to each other. Secrets and hidden thoughts are seen as signs of danger or evil intentions." David's heart sank. This was exactly what Earth's leaders had been afraid of. How could he build trust with people who wanted him to share his thoughts when he'd been specifically ordered not to? Before he could ask more questions, the hall filled with a soft humming sound. Other Zephyrians began gathering, all facing toward a large doorway at the far end of the room. "She's coming," Kira whispered. The queen entered, and David immediately understood why these people followed her. She moved with a grace that seemed almost supernatural, and there was something about her presence that made everything else in the room feel less important. Her blue skin had more intricate silver patterns than the others, and her eyes seemed to look right through him. Queen Astara stopped a few feet away and studied David carefully. When she spoke, her voice seemed to echo in his mind as well as his ears. "So you are the human who claims to want friendship between our peoples," she said. "Yet you come here with walls around your mind, hiding your true thoughts from us." David tried to stay calm. "Your Majesty, I come with respect and hope for our future together. My people sent me here to learn about yours and find ways we can help each other." The Queen's expression didn't change. "Words are easy, Captain Richardson. In our world, we judge beings by what they think and feel, not by what they say. How can we trust someone who refuses to let us know their true intentions?" The room fell silent. David realized that his carefully planned diplomatic approach wasn't going to work here. These people operated by completely different rules, and he was already failing their most basic test of trustworthiness. Looking around at all the Zephyrian faces watching him, David knew that everything he'd been trained for might not be enough. This mission was already more complicated than anyone back on Earth had imagined. 3 days had passed since David first met Queen Astara, and nothing was going according to plan. Every meeting felt like walking through a minefield where he didn't know the rules. The Queen would ask simple questions, but David could sense there were deeper meanings behind every word. During their second meeting, David had tried to present Earth's proposal for trade agreements. He'd prepared charts and data showing how both civilizations could benefit, but Queen Astara barely looked at his materials. "Numbers and pictures tell us nothing about your heart," she had said, tapping her chest where a human heart would be. "We need to know who you really are, not what you want to sell us." David was starting to understand that these people didn't make decisions the way humans did. They seemed to care more about feelings and trust than facts and logic. This made everything much harder for him. Ambassador Kira had been trying to help him understand their ways, but even she seemed frustrated with the situation. "Captain Richardson," she told him privately, "the Queen is beginning to think your people might be dangerous. The way you keep your thoughts hidden makes her very nervous." "But I'm just following my orders," David explained. "My government told me to be careful about sharing sensitive information." "I understand," Kira said sadly. "But to us that sounds like you're planning something harmful. Why else would you need so many secrets?" The worst moment came during a formal dinner on his 4th night. David was invited to eat with the Queen and several important Zephyrian leaders. The food was strange but delicious, unlike anything he'd ever tasted. Everything seemed to be going well until they began what Kira called the sharing circle. One by one, each Zephyrian at the table would close their eyes and project their thoughts and feelings to the others. David watched in amazement as their faces showed different emotions, as if they were experiencing each other's memories. When it was David's turn, everyone looked at him expectantly. Queen Astara gestured for him to join the circle. "Please share with us a memory that shows who you truly are," she said gently. David's training kicked in immediately. Earth security briefings had been very clear about this exact situation. Never let aliens access human thoughts or memories. It could compromise everything. "I'm honored by your invitation," David said carefully. "But in my culture, we consider our private thoughts to be sacred. I hope you can respect that." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The Zephyrians all exchanged glances, and David could tell they were communicating telepathically about him. None of it looked good. Queen Astara stood up slowly, her face showing disappointment and something that looked like fear. "Captain Richardson, you have just told us that you consider sharing your true self to be impossible. How can we trust someone who refuses to be known?" "Your Majesty, please understand," David began, but she raised her hand. "In our history, only those with evil intentions hide their thoughts from others. Warriors planning attacks, criminals plotting crimes, invaders studying our weaknesses." Her voice grew stronger. "Is this what you are doing here?" David felt panic rising in his chest. No, absolutely not. I came here in peace, hoping to build friendship between our peoples. Then prove it, Queen Astera said firmly. Open your mind to us. Show us your peaceful intentions. I cannot do that, David said, hating how it sounded even as he said it. Queen's expression hardened. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Guards, please escort Captain Richardson back to his quarters. As David was led away, he caught Kira's eye. She looked genuinely sad for him, but she didn't try to help. He realized that from their perspective, he really did look like someone with something terrible to hide. Back in his room, David tried to contact Earth for new instructions, but the communication delay made real conversation impossible. His messages would take hours to reach home, and the responses would take just as long to come back. He was on his own. Later that evening, Kira came to visit him. She looked around nervously before speaking. "Captain, I need to tell you something important," she whispered. "The Queen is meeting with her war council tomorrow. Some of them think your people might be planning to attack us." David's blood ran cold. "That's not true at all. We just want to trade peacefully." "I believe you," Kira said. "But the Queen doesn't know what to think. Your refusal to share thoughts with us looks very suspicious. In our entire history, we've never encountered beings who keep their minds completely closed." "What can I do?" David asked desperately. Kira was quiet for a long moment. "There might be one way to prove your good intentions, but it's very dangerous for you." "Tell me." "There's an ancient ceremony called the Velthara. It's the strongest way to show trust in our culture. But no outsider has ever attempted it, and once it begins, it cannot be stopped." David leaned forward. "What does it involve?" "It creates a permanent connection between two minds. The Queen would be able to sense your thoughts and feelings forever, but you would also be connected to her and to our people. You would become part of our community in a way." The idea terrified David, but he could see it was his only option. "What exactly happens during this ceremony?" Kira looked uncomfortable. "It requires complete trust between the participants. They must share not just thoughts, but their whole selves with each other. The connection is formed through mental, emotional, and she paused, physical unity." David wasn't sure he understood completely, but he got the sense that this ceremony was very intimate and would change him forever. "If I refuse?" he asked. "The Queen will declare humans to be a threat. She'll close our borders forever, and she might even warn other alien civilizations to avoid contact with your people." David stared out his window at the crystal city glowing. In the darkness, billions of people on Earth were counting on him. The future of human expansion into space might depend on what he decided in the next few hours. "How long do I have to decide?" "The Queen will ask for your answer tomorrow morning," Kira said sadly. "I'm sorry, Captain. I wish there was another way." After she left, David sat alone in his room, realizing that he faced an impossible choice. He could follow his orders and lose everything, or break every rule he'd been given and risk his own humanity for the chance to save the mission. Outside his window, the alien city pulsed with life, beautiful and mysterious. Somewhere in that Crystal Palace, Queen Astara was making her own difficult decisions about the future of both their peoples. David didn't sleep at all that night. He kept thinking about what Kira had told him about the ancient ceremony. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined billions of people back on Earth losing their chance for a better future because he couldn't make the right decision. At sunrise, his communication device finally received a response from Earth Command. General Williams appeared on the small screen, looking tired and worried. "Captain Richardson, we've reviewed your reports. The situation sounds more complicated than we expected," the general said. "However, our position remains the same. Under no circumstances should you allow these aliens access to human thoughts or military information." David had expected this answer, but hearing it made his stomach twist with anxiety. "Sir, I don't think you understand how serious this is. If I refuse their ceremony, they might consider all humans to be enemies. We could lose this alliance forever." The general's face hardened. "Son, I understand you're under pressure, but we cannot risk the security of our entire species for one trade agreement. Find another way." The connection cut off, leaving David staring at a blank screen. He was truly alone now, facing a choice that could change the course of human history. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Captain Richardson?" "The Queen requests your presence in the throne room," came a voice from outside. David straightened his uniform and walked through the crystal corridors one last time as a free man. Whatever happened in the next hour would determine everything. The throne room was more crowded than before. Besides Queen Astara, there were at least 20 other Zephyrians present, including several who wore what looked like military uniforms. David recognized some faces from the disastrous dinner, but others were new to him. Queen Astara sat on her crystal throne, looking every bit the powerful ruler she was. When she spoke, her voice carried throughout the room without effort. "Captain Richardson, I have spent the night consulting with my advisors about your presence here. We have reached a decision that I must share with you." David's heart pounded, but he tried to keep his expression calm. "Many of my people believe that your refusal to open your mind to us proves you have dangerous intentions," the Queen continued. "They think we should end all contact with humanity immediately and warn other civilizations to avoid your species." One of the military-dressed Zephyrians stepped forward. "Your Majesty, beings who hide their thoughts are always planning harm. In our entire history, this has never failed to be true." David felt sweat building on his forehead. This was going even worse than he'd feared. Queen Astara raised her hand for silence. "However, Ambassador Kira has spoken on your behalf. She believes that your people simply have different customs and that you personally mean us no harm." Kira stepped out from the crowd and gave David an encouraging look. At least he had one ally in the room. "Therefore," Queen Astara announced, "I will give you one final opportunity to prove your peaceful intentions. You may participate in the Velthara ceremony with me. This ancient ritual will allow me to know your true heart and see that you mean us no harm." The room fell completely silent. David could feel every pair of alien eyes watching him, waiting for his response. "Your Majesty," David said carefully, "could you help me understand exactly what this ceremony involves?" Queen Astara's expression softened slightly. "The Velthara has been used for thousands of years when trust must be established between our people and outsiders. It creates a permanent bond between two minds, allowing each to sense the other's thoughts and emotions." She stood and walked closer to David. "The ceremony has 3 stages. First, we must achieve mental connection through meditation and gradual opening of our thoughts. Second, we share our deepest memories and emotions, holding nothing back. Finally, we unite completely, mind, spirit, and body, to make the bond permanent and unbreakable." David felt his face growing hot as he began to understand what she meant by unite completely. This wasn't just about sharing thoughts. "Once the ceremony is complete," Queen Astara continued, "I will be able to sense your intentions at all times, and you will carry a piece of my consciousness within you forever. You would become, in a sense, part of our people." The military advisor spoke again. "Your Majesty, surely you do not intend to perform this sacred ritual with an alien? The Velthara is meant for our own kind only." Queen Astara's eyes flashed with authority. "I am queen, and I will decide what is necessary to protect our people. If Captain Richardson agrees to the ceremony, I will know beyond any doubt whether humans can be trusted." She turned back to David. "However, I must warn you, the ceremony will change you forever. You will never again be fully human as you understand it. The connection between us cannot be broken, even by death. Are you prepared for such a commitment?" David's mind raced. Everything he'd been taught about following orders and protecting human secrets was screaming at him to refuse. But he could see the bigger picture now. If he said no, humanity might never get another chance like this. "Your Majesty," David said slowly, "if I agree to this ceremony, will you move forward with trade agreements and peaceful relations with Earth? If the ceremony shows me that your intentions are pure, yes. Our peoples will become allies, and we will share our knowledge and resources freely. David looked around the room at all the watching faces. Some looked hopeful, others suspicious, but all were waiting for his answer. He thought about his orders from Earth Command. He thought about the billions of people back home who needed the resources this planet could provide. He thought about his own life and how it would change forever if he went through with this. Most importantly, he thought about Queen Astara herself. Despite everything, he could see in her eyes that she genuinely wanted to find a way to trust him. She was offering him the most sacred thing her culture had, complete openness and connection. "I need to ask you something honestly," David said. "Do you truly believe this ceremony is necessary? Is there no other way?" Queen Astara looked sad, but determined. "Captain Richardson, in my culture, we have a saying, trust shared is trust doubled, but trust hidden is trust destroyed. You have already shown us that you will not trust us with your thoughts. The only way to move forward is for us to become so connected that hiding becomes impossible." David closed his eyes and made his decision. When he opened them again, he looked directly at Queen Astara. "Your Majesty, I accept your offer. I will participate in the Velthara ceremony with you." Gasps and murmurs filled the throne room. Some Zephyrians looked shocked, others pleased, and a few seemed worried about what would happen next. Queen Astara studied David's face carefully. "You understand what you are agreeing to? Once we begin, there is no turning back." "I understand," David said, though his voice shook slightly. "When do we begin?" "Tonight, when both moons are visible in the sky. Ambassador Kira will prepare you for what is to come." Queen Astara's expression was unreadable. "I hope for both our people's sake that your heart is as pure as you claim it to be." As David left the throne room, he realized there was no going back now. In a few hours, he would either save humanity's future among the stars or lose himself completely in the attempt. The hours leading up to the ceremony felt like the longest of David's life. Ambassador Kira had spent the afternoon explaining what would happen, but nothing could really prepare him for what lay ahead. "The Temple of Eternal Bonds is the most sacred place on our world," Kira told him as they walked through hidden passages beneath the palace. "Only the most important ceremonies happen there. You should feel honored that the Queen chose this place for your ritual." David tried to feel honored, but mostly he felt terrified. "Kira, can you tell me honestly, will I still be myself after this is over?" She was quiet for a moment. "You will still be David Richardson," she said finally. "But you will also be more than that. The ceremony doesn't take away who you are. It adds to who you are." They reached a door made of some kind of glowing crystal. Kira placed her hand on it, and it dissolved like water, revealing a passage that led downward. "This is as far as I can go with you," she said. "From here you must go alone. Follow the lights, and they will lead you to the temple." David nodded and stepped through the doorway. Behind him, the crystal reformed, sealing him in. There was no going back now. The passage was lit by the same gentle glow he'd seen throughout the city, but here it seemed more alive somehow. The lights pulsed in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, guiding him deeper underground. After what felt like forever, David emerged into the most beautiful space he'd ever seen. The Temple of Eternal Bonds was carved from living crystal that seemed to breathe with its own light. Pools of water reflected the glow from above, where two moons shone through an opening in the ceiling. Queen Astara was already there, but she looked different from before. Gone were her royal robes and crown. Instead, she wore simple white clothing that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. Her silver markings appeared brighter, almost glowing against her blue skin. "Welcome, David Richardson," she said softly. Her voice echoed strangely in the crystal chamber, as if the temple itself was listening. "Are you ready to begin?" David's mouth felt dry, but he managed to answer. "I'm ready, Your Majesty." "Here, you may call me Astara," she said with a gentle smile. "Tonight we are not queen and ambassador. We are simply two beings seeking to understand each other." She gestured to a raised platform in the center of the temple, surrounded by the glowing pools. "We will begin with the joining of minds. Please, Sit across from me." David sat cross-legged on the warm crystal surface, facing Astara. Up close, he could see that she was nervous too. Somehow, that made him feel a little better. "Close your eyes," Astara instructed. "I will guide you through this first step. Do not be afraid of what you might feel." David closed his eyes and tried to calm his racing heart. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly he began to sense something else in his mind, a gentle presence that felt curious and kind. "That's me," Astara's voice said, though her lips hadn't moved. She was speaking directly into his thoughts. "Can you feel me there?" It was the strangest sensation David had ever experienced. It wasn't like hearing someone talk, or even like remembering a conversation. It was as if her thoughts were becoming part of his own thoughts. "I can feel you," David thought back, amazed when she nodded in response. "Good. Now I need you to do something very difficult. I need you to stop protecting your mind and let me see who you really are." This was the moment David had been dreading. Everything in his training told him to keep his mental barriers up. But he'd made his choice, and he had to follow through. Slowly, carefully, David began to let his guard down. It felt like opening a door he'd kept locked his entire life. The moment his defenses dropped, David felt Astara's consciousness flow into his mind like warm water. She could see his memories, his fears, his hopes for the future. But instead of feeling violated, he felt understood in a way he'd never experienced before. At the same time, Astara's memories began flowing into his mind. He saw her childhood, in the Crystal Palace, the weight of becoming queen at a young age, her deep love for her people and her fear of making wrong decisions that might hurt them. "You're not what I expected." Astara's mental voice was filled with wonder. "Your thoughts are so different from ours, but your heart wants the same things we want. Peace, safety for your people, a better future." David could feel her relief and growing trust. Through their connection, he experienced her realization that humans weren't the threat some of her advisors believed them to be. "I can see your world through your memories," she continued. "Earth is beautiful, but your people are struggling. You came here not to conquer or harm us, but because you genuinely need our help." Hours seemed to pass as they shared their deepest thoughts and feelings. David learned about Zephyrian history, their connection to nature, and their complex society built on trust and emotional bonds. Astara experienced human determination, curiosity, and the incredible diversity of Earth's cultures. But the mental connection was only the first part of the ceremony. "Now comes the final stage," Astara said aloud, opening her eyes. "This will make our bond permanent and unbreakable." She stood and extended her hand to David. When he took it, he felt an electric sensation run through his entire body. "The joining of spirits requires us to trust each other completely," she explained. "We must share not just our thoughts, but our very essence." David didn't fully understand what she meant until it began happening. As they moved closer together, he felt their life energies beginning to merge. It was deeper and more profound than the mental connection they'd already shared. The temple around them seemed to respond to what was happening. The crystal walls grew brighter, and the pools of water began to glow with the same silver light as Astara's markings. David felt himself changing on a fundamental level. Part of Astara's consciousness was becoming permanently part of him, while part of his was joining with hers. They were creating something new together, not losing themselves but becoming more than they had been separately. When the ceremony reached its peak, David experienced a moment of perfect unity with another being. All barriers disappeared, all fears melted away, and for one incredible instant, he understood what it truly meant to trust someone completely. As the sensation gradually faded, David found himself lying on the crystal platform, feeling exhausted, but somehow more complete than he'd ever felt before. Astara was beside him, her eyes wide with amazement. "It is done," she whispered. "The bond is formed." David could feel the truth of her words. Even though the intense connection had settled into something gentler, he could still sense Astara's presence in his mind. More importantly, he could feel her absolute trust in him and his people. "How do you feel?" she asked, sitting up slowly. David took a moment to check himself. He still felt like David Richardson. But now there was something extra, a part of him that understood the universe the way Zephyrians did. "I feel different, but good," he said honestly. "I can sense your thoughts and emotions, but they don't feel foreign anymore. They feel like they belong." Astara smiled, and David could feel her happiness through their bond. "And I can sense your true nature now. You are exactly who you claimed to be. A peaceful man trying to build bridges between worlds." As they prepared to leave the temple, David realized that everything had changed. He was no longer just a human ambassador. He was something new, something that belonged to both worlds. The ceremony was complete, but David knew this was really just the beginning of a much larger story. 1 month had passed since the ceremony, and David's life had changed in ways he never could have imagined. The bond with Queen Astara wasn't just something that happened during special moments. It was a constant, gentle presence in his mind that had become as natural as breathing. He woke up each morning in his new quarters within the palace, instantly aware of Astara's emotional state. Today she felt excited and hopeful, which meant something good was about to happen. "Good morning, David," came her voice in his thoughts as he got dressed. "Are you ready for the signing ceremony?" David smiled. Through their connection, he could feel her anticipation about the historic agreement they were about to make official. "I've been ready for weeks," he thought back to her. The past month had been incredibly busy. Once Queen Astara could sense David's true intentions through their bond, everything had moved quickly. Trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and technology sharing deals had all been negotiated with amazing speed. The best part was that David no longer needed translators or cultural guides. Through his connection to Astara, he could understand Zephyrian customs and even communicate telepathically with other members of their society. He'd become the perfect bridge between two worlds. Ambassador Kira knocked on his door. "Captain Richardson, the Queen is ready for you in the main hall." David opened the door and saw Kira's surprised expression. This happened a lot now. Zephyrians could sense his mental connection to their queen, and it always amazed them. "I still can't believe you actually went through with the ceremony," Kira said as they walked through the crystal corridors. "You're the first outsider in our history to form a bond with royalty." "Sometimes I can't believe it either," David admitted, "but it was the right choice. Both our peoples are going to benefit from this." They entered the main hall where dozens of Zephyrian officials had gathered. At the center of the room stood a large crystal table where the official documents waited to be signed. These weren't just papers. They were crystalline tablets that would glow with binding energy once both leaders added their signatures. Queen Astara was already there, wearing her formal royal robes. When she saw David, her face lit up with a smile that he felt as much as saw through their bond. "David," she said aloud for the benefit of the gathered crowd, "are you ready to make history?" "More than ready," David replied, feeling a surge of pride and accomplishment. What made this moment even more special was the presence of representatives from Earth. 3 days ago, a ship had arrived carrying Admiral Thompson and a full diplomatic team. David had been nervous about explaining his transformation to his superiors, but the results spoke for themselves. Admiral Thompson stepped forward, looking impressed despite himself. "Captain Richardson, I have to admit that when we first heard what you'd done, many of us were worried. But seeing these agreements and the relationship you've built with the Zephyrian people, it's remarkable." Through his bond with Astara, David could sense her amusement at the Admiral's formal tone. She found human military protocols both fascinating and slightly ridiculous. "Admiral, I know I went beyond my original orders," David said, "but I truly believe this was the only way to achieve lasting peace between our civilizations." "The results prove you were right," Admiral Thompson replied. "Earth Command has approved all the agreements you've negotiated. You've secured everything we hoped for and more." Queen Astara approached the crystal table. Before we sign these documents, I want everyone here to understand what this moment means. For thousands of years, my people have lived in isolation, trusting only ourselves. Today, we open our world to new friends and new possibilities. She looked directly at David. This alliance exists because one brave human was willing to risk everything to prove that trust between different species is possible. David Richardson didn't just negotiate these agreements, he became living proof that our peoples can work together. David felt warmth spreading through his chest, both from his own pride and from Astara's genuine affection for him flowing through their bond. The signing ceremony was surprisingly emotional. As each agreement was officially approved, the crystal tablets glowed brighter, symbolizing the binding nature of the promises being made. Trade routes, scientific cooperation, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts all became reality, with the stroke of specially designed energy pens. When it was over, the room erupted in celebration. Zephyrians and humans mingled together, many meeting for the first time. David watched with satisfaction as he saw genuine curiosity and friendliness on both sides. Later that evening, David stood on a balcony overlooking the Crystal City. The lights below pulsed in celebration, and he could feel the happiness of thousands of Zephyrians through his enhanced connection to their collective consciousness. Astara joined him, no longer in her formal robes, but wearing the simple, comfortable clothing she preferred when they were alone. "How does it feel to be the most successful human diplomat in history?" she asked with a teasing smile. "Overwhelming," David answered honestly. 6 months ago, I was just a regular space captain. Now, I'm permanently bonded to an alien queen and responsible for the future relationship between two civilizations. "Do you regret it?" Astara asked, though through their bond, she already knew the answer. "Not for a second," David said, meaning every word. "This bond we share, it's made me understand things about the universe that I never could have learned any other way. I feel more complete now than I ever did before." Astara moved closer to him. "The Council of Elders has made a decision about your future. They want to offer you a permanent position as the official liaison between our peoples. You would live here on our world, but also travel to Earth regularly to help maintain our relationship." David had been expecting this offer. Through their bond, he'd sensed the discussions happening among Zephyrian leadership. "What would that mean exactly?" "It means you would become the first human citizen of our world," Astara explained. "You would have all the rights and responsibilities of one of our people, while also remaining connected to your own species." The idea excited David more than he'd expected. "And you? What happens to us?" Astara's emotions flowed warm and strong through their bond. "The ceremony made us partners for life, David, not just in diplomacy but in everything. If you accept this position, we would work together to build the future both our peoples deserve." David looked out at the glowing city below, then up at the stars where Earth waited. Through his connection to Astara, he could sense the vast network of Zephyrian consciousness that now included him. He was part of something larger than himself, something that could change the galaxy. "I accept," he said without hesitation. 3 months later, David stood in the same throne room where he'd first met Queen Astara. But now he wore Zephyrian ceremonial clothes alongside his human diplomatic uniform. On the crystal table before them lay plans for humanity's first permanent colony on a Zephyrian world, detailed scientific exchange programs, and proposals for joint exploration missions to distant stars. Admiral Thompson was there again, along with Earth's top scientists and diplomats. They all looked at David with a mixture of respect and amazement. He'd become something unprecedented, a human who could think and feel like a Zephyrian while remaining fundamentally human. "The Zephyrian-Human Alliance officially begins today," Queen Astara announced to the gathered crowd. "Together, our peoples will explore new worlds, share knowledge, and build a future none of us could achieve alone." David felt the truth of her words through their bond. This was just the beginning of an incredible journey that would take both civilizations to heights they'd never imagined possible. As the ceremony concluded and the two groups began planning their shared future, David realized that his greatest achievement wasn't the trade agreements or the alliance itself. It was proving that trust, understanding, and cooperation could bridge any gap, even the vast space between different worlds. The bond he shared with Astara had become a symbol of what was possible when beings chose to see past their differences and work together. And as they planned humanity's expansion into the stars alongside their new alien allies, David knew that the best parts of this story were still to come.